Good evening. You are safe here. There is nothing you need to do, nowhere you need to go. Just let the day fall away and allow yourself to drift into this quiet story. Tonight we will wander together into a winter long ago, a winter in the medieval world. These were winters without electricity, without central heating, without glowing lights in every room. They were winters of stone walls, wooden beams, and the sound of firewood crackling softly in the hearth. They were long, quiet seasons where warmth was not simply comfort, but survival, and yet, within that need, there was also a kind of peace. The world outside was harsh. Snow pressed against the shutters of cottages, and ice crept along the edges of windows. Roads turned into narrow, frozen tracks, and fields lay silent under pale white blanket. The air was cold, sharper than most of us know now, the kind of cold that cut through wool and skin alike. Yet inside, people created warmth. They built small havens against the season, places where the fire glowed, where families gathered close, and where life slowed to a gentle rhythm. Imagine yourself there if you wish. The night is dark. The only light comes from a fire burning low at the center of the room. The smoke drifts lazily upward, escaping through a hole in the roof or a narrow chimney. Around you, the walls are thick, perhaps made of stone, perhaps of timber packed with clay and straw. The roof is heavy with snow, but it holds. The air smells of wood smoke, of wool drying by the fire, of bread slowly baking in the coals. You sit wrapped in layers. Wool is rough but warm. A cloak is pulled close around your shoulders. Beneath it, a tunic, a shirt, perhaps another layer tucked in for good measure. Your feet are bound in thick socks and boots, still damp from the snow outside, but already warming by the fire. You can feel the glow of the heat on your skin, gentle and steady, like the heartbeat of the home. This is how people survived winter in those times. They did not chase the cold away with machines or buttons. They simply layered themselves in warmth, stayed close to the fire, and let the season pass slowly as it always had. The days were short, the nights were long, and so life fell into a quiet rhythm. Work was slower, meals were heartier, evenings stretched out into silence. Families spoke in low voices or sat simply listening to the crackle of the hearth. Outside, the snow still falls. It lands softly on the frozen earth, builds along the branches of trees, and settles into silence. No carts pass now, no voices call out. The night belongs only to the wind and the snow, but you are not outside. You are here safe, inside the warmth. You can almost hear the sounds, the gentle hiss as a log splits in the fire, the creak of wooden beams as they settle under the weight of the roof, a child's quiet breathing as they drift into sleep beside their parents. Even the animals, perhaps kept indoors through the coldest nights, add their warmth to the air. A cow shifting softly in its stall, a goat resting nearby. Their breath is steam in the cold, and even that becomes part of the comfort of the home. The medieval winter was long, but it was not empty. It carried its own kind of beauty. By the firelight, shadows danced across the walls. Simple meals became a comfort. Bread, thick and crusty, warmed by the embers. A bowl of pottage, steaming and filling, shared by the whole family. Ale heated gently, spiced and sweet, passed slowly from hand to hand. Each small thing carried weight, because each small thing meant warmth, meant life, meant rest. And when night deepened, when the fire was banked low and the last of the light faded, people would climb into their beds. Not beds as we know them, but frames of wood, heaped with straw or feathers, covered in blankets heavy with wool. Families often slept together, close enough to share warmth. Children nestled between parents, grandparents tucked nearby, everyone gathered under layers of quilts. In that closeness, the cold of the outside world faded away. The season was harsh, but it was also steady. It taught people patience. There was no rushing the winter. There was no way to shorten the nights or summon the sun. There was only waiting, only enduring, only living slowly. And in that slowness, there was a kind of quiet peace. So imagine yourself now within that quiet, the fire burning softly, the air still and heavy with warmth. Outside, the world is frozen, but here you are safe. You are wrapped in layers, your body resting, your mind drifting. The night is long, but you do not need to fight it. You can simply let it carry you softly towards sleep. There is no urgency here. The story continues, but you do not need to listen closely. You do not need to hold on to every word. Let them wash over you like the sound of falling snow, like the soft whisper of wind against the shutters. The fire burns, the night deepens, and you are already drifting. Rest now, breathe slowly. Allow yourself to sink into the warmth, into the stillness, into the long medieval night. You are safe, you are warm, you are home. The heart of every medieval home, whether it was a small cottage on the edge of a field or a great stone hall within the walls of a castle, was the fire. It was more than light. It was more than a tool for cooking. It was life itself. Without it, the cold of winter crept into every corner. With it, even the longest, darkest night could be softened into something bearable, even comforting. Imagine yourself entering such a home. At first, the outside world clings to you, your cloak is dusted with snow, your hands ache with cold, your breath is still a faint cloud in the air. But as you step through the doorway, the change is immediate. The smell of smoke greets you, the faint orange glow reaches across the room, the sound of crackling wood fills the silence. The fire is there, waiting. In the smallest cottages, it sat at the center of the room, a simple hearth made of stone, with a hole above in the thatched roof to let the smoke escape. The walls were darkened by years of soot. The air was heavy with its scent, but no one minded. Smoke meant warmth, and warmth meant survival. Families gathered around, drawing close to the flames, their shadows stretching and flickering against the walls. In larger homes, the hearth was grander. A fireplace set deep into the stone, wide enough to hold logs the size of small trees. In the halls of castles, these fires burned day and night, tended constantly so that the flames never died. The smoke rose high into chimneys, curling above rooftops, a signal to the world outside that life within continued, steady and strong against the cold. Wood was precious in winter. Gathering it was a task that never ended. Branches collected from forests, chopped logs stacked carefully, peat dug from the earth and dried for burning. Each piece held value, for each piece gave heat. Families rationed their firewood, careful not to waste it, careful to keep enough for the weeks still to come. But when the fire was lit, it offered more than warmth. It became a place of gathering. People cooked over it, boiling stews and baking bread. They told stories beside it, voices low and slow as the night stretched on. They sang songs, they whispered prayers, they mended clothes by its light. The hearth was the quiet companion of every evening, always present, always glowing. Close your eyes for a moment and imagine sitting there. The flames dance slowly, never in a hurry, just as you are not in a hurry now. The wood pops softly, a reminder that the fire is alive, tending itself in gentle rhythm. The room is dim but not dark. Shadows rise and fall along the beams above you. The warmth wraps around you, first your hands, then your face, then the rest of your body. The longer you sit, the more the cold fades away. There is a kind of hypnotic peace to the fire. Staring into it, time begins to blur. Minutes slip into hours. The outside world disappears. Only the flames remain, curling, glowing, whispering their steady lullaby. It is easy to understand why, for centuries, people sat quietly before the fire, letting it fill the silence, letting it soothe them. At night, when it was time for sleep, the fire was not fully extinguished. Instead, it was banked. The embers were covered with ash, tucked in gently so they could smolder through the night. In the morning, with only a breath of air and a new piece of wood, the flames would rise again, as though they had only been resting. In this way, the fire lived as the household lived, never fully gone, always ready to give warmth once more. In monasteries, monks kept their fires carefully. Silence filled their cloisters, but within their kitchens and warming rooms, the flames were steady companions. In castles, servants tended the great hearths, keeping them alive through feasts and gatherings. And in the humblest of cottages, children learned early to add small sticks, to feed the fire gently, to keep it alive. Everywhere the hearth was more than stone and flame. It was the soul of the home. Around it, life unfolded. Without it, winter would have been unbearable. With it, nights could be long, but never empty. As you sit here now, listening quietly, you might feel a little of that same comfort. The gentle crackle, the soft glow, the warmth that asks nothing of you, only that you rest. So let yourself drift with it. Imagine the fire burning steadily in front of you. Imagine the room dim and calm, filled with shadows and light. Imagine the world outside, frozen and silent, while here inside, you are warm, safe, and unhurried. The night stretches on, but you have no need to stay awake. The fire will burn whether your eyes are open or closed. It will glow just as softly, just as steadily. You are at ease, you are at rest. And soon, You will be asleep. When the air outside grew sharp and bitter, when frost gathered along the edges of windows and breath turned to mist with every word, warmth began with what people wore. In a world without modern fabrics, without fleece or polyester or down jackets, clothing itself was a kind of shield. Layer upon layer, woven from the gifts of animals and the land, wrapped the body in comfort against the long medieval winter. Wool was the most common. Sheep gave their coats, and those coats, once shorn, washed, and spun into yarn, became the everyday armor against the cold. A woolen tunic was thick, sturdy, and warm, though sometimes rough against the skin. Cloaks made of wool hung heavy on the shoulders, clasped at the chest, and reached nearly to the ground. They could be pulled tight when the wind cut hard, or lifted as a blanket when sleep called. In every village, in every hall, wool was the fabric of survival. Linen lay beneath, lighter and softer. Shirts and undergarments were often linen, close to the skin, offering a smoother layer between the body and the rougher wool above. It was not as warm on its own, but it worked in harmony with the other layers, trapping air, holding heat. Layer upon layer, this was the way warmth was kept. For those who could afford it, fur was precious. Rabbit, fox, squirrel, or even wolf, their skins lined cloaks, edged hoods, and padded boots. The fur held warmth more tightly than wool, wrapping its wearer in a softness that seemed almost luxurious against the harshness of the season. Nobles often draped themselves in furs as a mark of wealth, but even common folk found ways to use them. A single fur collar could make a difference on a long, frozen night. Head coverings were essential. Hoods, caps, and coifs, all tied or pulled snug, kept the warmth from escaping. Hands, too, needed protection. Gloves and mittens were stitched from leather, wool, or fur, each one keeping fingers from stiffening in the cold. Feet were layered in thick socks, sometimes stuffed with straw or wool scraps for extra insulation, before being pressed into leather boots. And still, even with all these layers, the cold crept in. The air found its way through cracks and seams, kissed the skin with sharpness, but people learned to live with it, to move within it. The layers did not banish the winter, but they softened it, turned it from something cruel into something bearable. Imagine yourself dressed as they were. First a linen shirt, soft and thin, then a woolen tunic heavier, its weave thick and sturdy. Over that, perhaps another layer, and finally a cloak, clasped at your chest, falling to your ankles. The hood covers your head, shadows your face. Wool wraps your legs, boots encase your feet. You feel the weight of it all, not unpleasant, but steady, grounding, like a shield against the night. The fabrics carry their own smells, of sheep, of fields, of wood smoke clinging from long hours by the hearth. They are not sterile or new, but familiar, lived in, and warm. When you walk outside, the cold presses against you, but it does not break through. Inside, you remove the outer layers slowly, carefully, laying them by the fire to dry, while the innermost garments remain against your skin, holding the heat you've gathered. In bed, too, clothing played its part. People did not change into lighter garments as we do now. They often slept in what they wore, wrapped tightly in blankets, their cloaks sometimes pulled on top as an extra cover. Children nestled in fully dressed, their small bodies layered in wool, their heads covered, their hands tucked close. The layers went with them everywhere, from morning to night, from field to fire, from the quiet of work to the quiet of sleep. There is something steady, something reassuring in this image, not the restless shedding of garments, but the slow comfort of being swaddled, day after day, against the cold. The layers remind you that you are safe, that warmth can be held close, that even in the harshest season, the body finds its way to rest. And as you imagine it now, your own body may feel a little of that same comfort, the sensation of being wrapped, of being covered, of being held. The cold cannot reach you here. You are warm, you are safe, and you are slowly sinking deeper into rest. The medieval people knew the secret of warmth. It was not one thing alone. Not only the fire, not only the walls, not only the blankets or the food. It was all of them together, woven like the threads of wool, layered patiently until the cold lost its edge. Clothing was only one part of that, but it was a part that never left them, that traveled with them, that wrapped them day and night in the simple comfort of warmth. So let yourself feel that same comfort now. Let yourself be layered, not in wool or fur, but in the soft weight of blankets, in the warmth of your own breath, in the stillness of the room around you. The cold cannot touch you. You are wrapped, protected, safe. And as you breathe more slowly, as your body softens, the layers of wakefulness will fall away too, one by one, until all that remains is warmth and silence and sleep. The walls of a medieval home carried the memory of many winters. Some were simple, built of wood and clay, with roofs thatched from straw gathered in the fields. Others were heavier, built of stone, their towers rising above villages, their great halls echoing with the sound of footsteps. But no matter how grand or humble, every home faced the same challenge when the cold season came: how to keep the warmth in and the chill out. The smallest cottages were one-room shelters, shared by families and sometimes their animals. The walls were timber frames filled with wattle and daub, a mixture of clay, straw and mud pressed together until it hardened. These walls did not block every draft. The wind still slipped in through cracks, the cold still pressed through in waves, but they were enough. With a fire burning at the center of the room, with cloaks hung along the walls, with straw spread across the floor, the space held heat, at least for a time. The roof was a blanket of its own. Thatch, thick and layered, held snow like a cap, sometimes so much that the weight pressed heavy on the beams. Birds nested in it, and in summer it sheltered against sun, but in winter its thick layers trapped warmth beneath. Smoke rose from the hearth and drifted upward, curling through the straw, sometimes blackening it, but always helping to insulate the air below. In villages, windows were rare. A small opening here or there, sometimes covered by wooden shutters, sometimes by oiled cloth or thin parchment. Glass was costly, found only in richer homes, and even then it was small, bubbled, and imperfect. At night, shutters were pulled closed against the wind. In the morning, frost often glittered along the edges. Floors, too, played their part. Many were packed earth, cold and hard, but families spread rushes or straw across them. These layers softened each step, caught ashes from the fire, and added a kind of warmth beneath bare feet. In richer homes, wooden planks lay beneath, sometimes covered with tapestries or woven mats. In castles, stone floors could be bitterly cold, so reeds or thick carpets were spread to blunt the chill. Every layer helped. Inside, heat gathered slowly. The walls absorbed it, the air carried it, and the bodies of those within added their own. In a small cottage, the closeness of the family, the warmth of cooking, even the heat from the animals kept inside: goats, sheep, sometimes even pigs, all of it worked together. It was not the kind of warmth we think of today, steady and even. It was patchy, flickering, sometimes strong, sometimes weak, but it was enough to turn a frozen night into a livable one. In castles, the challenge was greater. Their stone walls were thick, built for defense rather than comfort. They held the cold as much as they held the heat. Fires burned in vast hearths, but much of the warmth disappeared upward, swallowed by the drafty chimneys and echoing ceilings. Servants rushed to hang heavy tapestries along the walls, not just for beauty but for insulation. Great woolen cloths, embroidered and rich, covered stone and kept out the chill. Floors were layered with thick rugs. Doors were hung with furs. Even the furniture, high-backed chairs, canopied beds, was built to trap warmth around the body, creating a small shelter within a larger, colder hall. And still, even in these grand spaces, the cold never fully left. Nobles wore furs indoors, their cloaks pulled close, their hands wrapped in gloves. Bedchambers were fitted with braziers, small metal baskets where coals glowed, releasing just enough heat to soften the air. Servants carried hot stones, wrapped in cloth, to warm the sheets of their masters before sleep. It was never enough to banish the cold entirely, but it softened it, made it easier to endure. Imagine now that you are inside such a home. Perhaps a simple cottage, its walls dark with smoke, its roof thick with straw, its small windows closed tight against the wind. Or perhaps a chamber within a castle where the fire burns brightly in a great hearth, but the shadows still stretch long and the corners of the room remain cold. Wherever you are, you find warmth in small ways. A blanket draped across your shoulders, a rug beneath your feet, the quiet comfort of being inside, safe from the biting air. You can hear the wind outside, faint but steady, pressing against the walls, sighing through cracks. You can feel the difference, cold at the edges, warmth at the center. You move closer to the fire and you are safe again. Every sound is softened, every moment slower. The home is not perfect, but it is enough. The people of the medieval world knew that winter could not be shut out completely. The cold always found its way in, but they learned to live with it, to soften it, to layer against it, to accept it as part of life. Their homes became shelters, not perfect barriers, but places of comfort where families could rest, eat, and sleep through the long nights. And as you imagine this now, your own room becomes a little like theirs. A place of safety, imperfect but warm, where the outside world cannot reach you, where the walls around you hold the silence, where the air is still, where you can rest. Breathe slowly, as if you are sitting before the fire in a cottage long ago. Let your body soften as though you are sinking into straw spread across the floor or into a heavy bed hung with curtains. The cold is far away. The warmth is here. The night is long, but it is gentle. You are sheltered. You are safe. And you are drifting, slowly, deeper into sleep. When the nights grew long and the cold pressed hardest, warmth was not found in fire and clothing alone. It was found in people, in closeness, in the simple comfort of being near one another. In the medieval world, winter was never faced alone. Families huddled together. Neighbors gathered in shared spaces. Even strangers found comfort in the warmth of a crowded inn. Small cottage was never empty. The family lived together in one room, eating, working, and sleeping side by side. When darkness came, beds were shared, sometimes a mattress of straw laid on the ground, sometimes a raised wooden frame filled with feathers or hay. Children pressed against their parents, brothers and sisters tucked close, all covered in heavy blankets, cloaks, or whatever fabric the household could spare. The body heat of many became its own hearth. One person's warmth became the warmth of all. There was no shame in it, no hesitation. It was simply life. The winter taught that survival depended on closeness, and so a bed that might seem crowded to us now was, to them, a comfort. The sound of breathing all around, the slow rise and fall of chests, the quiet shifting of limbs, these were the lullabies of the medieval night. In inns and taverns, travelers found the same. A room might hold several beds, each shared by more than one guest. Strangers lay side by side, cloaks wrapped around them, boots resting at the edge of the bed. The common room below was warmed by a fire that burned through the night, and the heat rose slowly upward, softening the chill of the sleeping chambers. It was not luxurious, but it was enough. Better by far than the frozen roads outside, where snow gathered on branches and frost glazed the stones. Even animals played their part. In cottages, livestock were often brought indoors during the deepest winter. A cow in a corner stall, a few goats or sheep near the door, chickens roosting quietly above. Their bodies gave off heat, and that heat, small as it was, added to the warmth of the room. The scent of hay, the soft sound of animals shifting in their sleep, became part of the winter household. In great halls, warmth was found in numbers. A fire burned brightly, and people gathered close, nobles in fine cloaks, servants in plainer wool, children tucked among them. Music sometimes drifted through the hall, but more often there was simply the hum of voices, the murmur of conversation, the laughter of shared company. When many bodies filled a room, the air grew warmer, the cold at the edges pushed back a little more. Imagine this now. You are not alone in the winter night. You are surrounded by others, their presence steady, their warmth mingling with yours. The room is dim, the fire low, but the company is enough. You hear the soft rustle of someone shifting beneath a blanket, the low sound of a cough, a child murmuring in sleep. The air is heavy with quiet life, and in that life you are wrapped. There is a deep reassurance in this closeness. The knowledge that you are part of something larger, that you are not alone against the cold, not alone against the long winter. The bodies around you share their heat without thought, and together you create a shelter stronger than any wall. Even in silence, this warmth is felt. It is in the breath of those beside you, in the weight of blankets pressed over many, in the comfort of knowing that when you wake, you will not wake alone. Now let that same sense of closeness reach you here. Even if the room around you is quiet, imagine it filled with the warmth of others. Imagine the steady rhythm of their breathing, the nearness of their presence. You do not need to carry the night by yourself. You are supported, surrounded, held by the quiet weight of communal warmth. And as your body softens, as your eyes grow heavier, you are not resisting the cold. You are simply resting within the warmth that has always been there. The warmth of fire, of clothing, of walls, and most of all, the warmth of togetherness. You are safe, you are not alone, and you are drifting slowly towards sleep. The rhythm of medieval winter was slow, steady, and filled with small rituals that kept people warm and comforted through the long nights. Life did not stop when the snow fell, but it changed. Days shortened, work slowed, and evenings stretched out like an endless quiet path. In that stillness, Warmth was found not only in fire, clothing, and closeness, but in the gentle habits of daily life. Morning came late. The sun rose pale and thin, its light barely strong enough to push back the shadows. People woke to the sound of roosters or the stirrings of animals kept indoors. The fire was coaxed back to life, embers uncovered from beneath their ash and fed with small sticks until the flames glowed once more. The first task of every winter day was warmth. Without it, nothing else could begin. Meals were simple but filling. A pot hung over the hearth, filled with grains, beans, or root vegetables simmering slowly. Pottage, a thick stew, was common, flavored with whatever the season allowed: leeks, onions, carrots, sometimes a piece of salted meat. Bread, dense and dark, was warmed by the fire and shared by all. Hot drinks, too, brought comfort. Ale warmed in the pot, milk heated gently, spiced wine in richer homes. Each sip carried heat into the body, spreading warmth from within. Work was done, but at a slower pace. Fields lay empty beneath the frost, so tasks turned inward. Wool was spun, clothes mended, tools repaired. Children gathered scraps of wood or straw for the hearth. Men cut logs, women baked and sewed, monks copied texts by candlelight. Each task was quiet, steady, and done close to the fire, where hands could move without stiffening in the cold. As the day faded, people drew nearer to the hearth. Shadows stretched long across walls and candles were lit, their flames small but steady. The sound of the wind outside grew sharper, rattling shutters, sighing at the edges of doors. But inside, the room was filled with gentle activity. A story told in a soft voice. A song hummed low, the steady rhythm of spinning wheels, or the creak of a chair as someone leaned close to the fire. These were the rituals of comfort. They were not grand or elaborate, but they carried people through the season, wrapping hands around a warm mug, pulling a cloak more tightly across the shoulders, tucking children beneath blankets at night, checking the fire once more before sleep. Each small act reminded the household that they were safe, that they were warm, that they could rest through the long night. Bedtime came early. With no lamps to stretch the day, no screens to keep eyes awake, people followed the sun. When darkness settled, sleep soon followed. Beds were layered with wool and fur, curtains drawn around them to trap warmth. Families lay close together, the sound of their breathing filling the quiet. Outside, frost spread across the ground, ice grew along the edges of streams, snow gathered deeper and deeper, but inside all was still. The night was long, but it was not empty. It was filled with the soft music of life at rest, the hiss of logs settling in the hearth, the rustle of straw beneath blankets, the faint murmur of someone whispering a prayer. These were the lullabies of winter, and they carried people gently into sleep, night after night, until the season passed. And so warmth in the medieval world was not only a matter of fire or walls. It was woven into every part of life, into the food, the clothing, the company, the daily rituals that gave rhythm to the coldest months. It was a way of living, slow and patient, always moving with the season rather than against it. As you imagine this now, let yourself rest in that same rhythm. Picture the hearth glowing softly, the room dim and calm, the air filled with warmth. Picture the simple rituals of comfort, each one carrying you further into peace. The fire has been tended, the shutters are closed, the blankets are heavy upon you, the night is long, but you are safe within it. There is nothing left for you to do, no task to finish, no burden to carry, only rest, only warmth, only sleep. Let your breath slow, let your body soften. The medieval winter has folded itself around you, quiet and still, carrying you gently through the night. And now you may drift.